Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Roll Call. I'm John Glahn. I have with me Kyle Gray, entrepreneur, best-selling author, founder of The Story Engine, and a world traveler, and many, many other cool things that we're going to get to learn about. All are accounted for. Let's start the roll call. So Kyle, welcome.
Hey, John, thank you so much for having me today. This is a true work of art of a show you have. And it means so much as also a podcast host myself to even everything that you've been setting up into this and bringing me on. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank everybody who's listening in, who's made this possible as well. It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Wow, Kyle, thank you so much for that. And oddly enough, our connection is who helped me start this and help the process by which we do this. So thank you to Armando LeDuc and the team at LeDuc Entertainment, which is our mutual connection. So I love jumping right into the story, right? Off air, we talk about, hey, where do you live? And you went, hey, this is where I live, but you know what? I've gone to up and everywhere around the world. So let's have your story. You're an entrepreneur. How'd you get here?
There's a lot of different facets to this, and we can explore a lot of different things. But the story that's most present to me is, and I think Armando will appreciate this as well, is in my late teens and early 20s, I was certain that the only way I was going to live a happy and fulfilled life was being a rock star, a singer-songwriter. And I love to play guitar. I love to write songs and perform. I was in a rock band for a while, and then was doing my own kind of just me singer-songwriter stuff. And I can remember in my early 20s with some of my college roommates who are all brilliant metal artists.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I can remember one day like sitting in my room I had this blue acoustic guitar. I had written a bunch of songs, and I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. I remember being like, this has to work. I need to have a hit song come out of me right now. And I remember like listening over into the room next to me, and like one of my roommates was just coming up with these like intricate, crazy, things. And I was just kind of playing an acoustic song and writing about girls. And it just didn't seem that cool. And so I remember just this feeling of just like frustration with myself and wanting to force something beautiful out of me. And I start strumming, and one of the strings breaks and almost whips me in the eye. And I remember putting the guitar down for a very long time, and it kind of soured my relationship with something that was really like beautiful to me. Mm-hmm. And I can remember this exact same feeling years later. It's now 2000 January, so the pandemic hasn't quite happened yet. But I'm feeling this exact same feeling with my business. I remember I'm living in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's the middle of winter. I'm walking to my co-working space, and I can just hear a sound that still, if I'm being honest, makes my heart rate go up a little bit, that clicking Slack noise. And my team is reaching out to me. My team hates my clients hates my team, and my business is totally redlining. I'm working with people creating great signature talks, and I have a team that's building the front end and the back end funnels of this. So we're helping you fill up your talks with great emails and great landing pages, and then once you give your talk, we're helping you with all the follow-ups and the landing pages and the sales sequence and all these great things. I'm the speaking and presentation coach, and then my team's helping everything on the front end and back end. We've got great clients. We're doing huge things, but at the same time, like we're just, everybody's getting exhausted and stressed and frustrated. And I can just remember like walking down that road, dreading getting to the office, dreading like being at home. At home, I come home at night, and the partner I'm living with, she feels frustrated with me because I'm just closed off and shut down. And all these things are happening at the same time. And probably when the pandemic came around as a blessing and a curse for me, but it really forced me to reflect on a lot of these things and shut that down and let go of a lot of my team. And the lesson that I learned was I had built a good thing for the wrong reasons. I had built a great team. I wasn't a great manager of them at the time, but it was a rock star team. But I was really doing it for the wrong reasons. I didn't really believe in who I was and my skills, particularly as a leader, to get great results. And so I put the team around me so that I could add more value. We would have these funnels, we would have these things and all of these things because I wasn't believing enough in myself. And thanks to this business kind of redlining and crashing, it gave me an opportunity to start trusting more of who I was and the talents and the skills that I brought to the table. And this was me taking my own medicine that I provide a lot of the people I work with these days. Almost everybody I work with is overworked, and they come to me. They don't think about things this way when they start coming to me. They say, Kyle, I don't have a lot of time. We need to write a talk very fast that's going to make me a lot of money. And I don't have time to like memorize it all or figure it all out or do all these things by myself. So I need somebody like you to surgically extract it out of me, which is what I do. And we're delighted by that.
Right.
But in the process of telling better stories and learning how to teach a little bit differently, we start to tactically, practically learn ways to value who we are, our story. And it starts to change. Well, when they start to make a little bit more money, when they speak, they feel a little more comfortable being a visionary and sharing that. And so all that being said, like I am always on this pathway of doing the same thing that I do with my clients, of really valuing who I am and the whole human that comes to the table, not just my ability to work hard, not just what I know, not just my credentials, not just my victories, but also my weaknesses and my flaws and my shortcomings, which very often, though they're things that I discount and the people I work with discount right away, are the things that our audience wants to hear. And if we learn how to express them in a strategic, in a generous, in a service-oriented way, can create great results for them and great results for us.
Whoa. So there was so much wrapped into that around the humanity of entrepreneurship and of you. And thanks for sharing some of that. Maybe I should just back up a bit, because you explained kind of how you do some things with your business. What is the story engine? And then we're going to go back to some of the other things you just said. What
Absolutely.
is the business?
The story engine has been around for about 10 years, and it's been all about storytelling for great leaders. But when I started out, I began as a content marketer, and the story engine is a book about creating a process and a system for effective, consistent content marketing to grow your business and your brand. And over the course of about 10 to 12 years, I've slowly shifted from content marketer, although I do that myself, but at least consulting with others, to copywriter, to speaking from the stage. And actually, I can remember seeing a joint venture presentation for the first time where somebody was talking about using speaking on the stage to grow your business. And it actually reminded me of the pleasure and the thrill that I got from being a singer-songwriter. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to figure that out. And so this must have been around 2015 or 2016, started dedicating everything I knew to great storytelling, speaking from the stage, and using that as a business growth tool. And I've worked with hundreds of experts in many different areas, particularly in health and wellness and finance, to help them with these things. But yeah, in so many ways, it's still me healing my relationship with myself, of enjoying my creativity and enjoying the process of creativity, not trying to make a hit song, but have fun playing guitar.
You know, I think one, distilling that back into, so many people have great stories, great products, great things to deliver to society, right? From a business perspective. And so many times they fail, or they hit a ceiling or whatever it might be, because they don't know how to get that story out. They don't know how to get that out. And there are many different ways that businesses do that through marketing and other things. And what I'm hearing you say is the piece that can help unlock a lot of that is that story of how you got here, whatever it is, whatever your widget is, that is the thing you're trying to sell. But it starts with, in many cases, the founder potentially, and creating the right story that makes it humanized, and then monetized.
It's true. But here's the problem, and why I love what I do and why a lot of people come to me. And I'm not somebody with all of the right answers, as wise as I may sound. I'm somebody who's very curious and has great questions. And it's not just like it's not just using a story, because when we sit down by ourselves and we're like, brain, what story should I tell today? Your brain, it's not just like a perfect Google search of your whole life and will equally pull up the right results. It redacts a lot of things. And so it's very likely that the story that is the right story, you've assigned the wrong meaning to it, and it won't appear in your brain's Google search. And so you need to be tricked. And I'll tell a quick story about what this is for me. And my own experience, because we're storytellers here. But so one of the things I mentioned, I traveled, I lived all over the world. I spent about 2 years in South America. I lived in Chile, Argentina, Peru, Brazil, and Colombia. I worked for a nonprofit when I was living in Peru, and I lived in Cusco and was helping all kinds of people with all kinds of really interesting projects. And one time I took a trip down to the Amazon. I was like 22 years old. And as the good 22-year-old man, I remember going on this hike through the jungle, and I saw a rope swing into an Amazonian lake. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
No fear. I get on that rope swing and I do a really bad backflip into the water. And a few days later, I get very sick from having the water. There was all kinds of weird bacteria and parasites and things that messed me up. And this would cascade into bad gut health. It would cause hormone, thyroid problems. It would make me feel really bad, feel really sick. And I thought that this was the worst thing ever to happen to me. And I remember on my very first coaching call, somebody with a coach, just someone as brilliant as you, probably for a little bit of an earlier stage founder. But I remember my first coach, I'm complaining about an autoimmune condition that I have now and all of these pains and anxieties and all these things that I'm feeling. And he said, Kyle, what if Hashimoto's disease is your superpower?
Ooh.
And I remember thinking, that's the dumbest thing I have ever heard. I'm going to hang up this call right now. Why did I ever hire a coach? This is outrageous. And I went on thinking that for about a year. And this is again around when at the same time I'm starting to learn about storytelling and speaking from the stage. And I'm facilitating a workshop for experts who want to get on more stages. And this workshop just so happened to be filled with health and wellness experts. And I remember sitting down for lunch at this workshop next to a woman. And she says, hey, my name's Dr. Grace Liu, and I help people overcome chronic autoimmune diseases through better gut health. And all of a sudden, like two different halves of my brain that I've never connected before started connecting, like the copywriting, the storytelling, the tactical parts of me started connecting with all of this pain and this experience and this frustration and these things, and started lining up. And I was like, oh, so your clients must do this. They want to do this, but that happens. Her jaw drops. She's like, oh my God, you need to come work with me. We started working together. I ghost wrote a book for her. I helped her reframe her offers and all of these things because of this, my own perspective as her ideal client I was able to help her tell better stories because she was just too dang smart, and she was talking too much science, and people were getting lost in this. And I was able to be this bridge. But what really important happened is it turns out that that coach was right. Although that year ago or so, it really was a superpower, and it enabled me to stand out in a crowded marketplace and attract clients who could really be benefiting from my message and see what I needed. And I like not only I could help them, they could help me and grow my business, and they could help me physically and actually become a success story. And so, like I said, with what I was certain was a curse. And if you would have asked me like in that first time to tell a story about being sick, I wouldn't have wanted to. I was so mad about it.
Right.
And most of the people I work with, we have this same relationship when you're starting out with me, that the thing that you have labeled as the worst thing, a weakness, a flaw, something that you definitely wouldn't want to share in front of your shareholders or your clients or your team for that matter. If we can learn how to do it and why we do it in a way that's effective and tactical, it changes not only what kind of results we get on the stage, but our relationship with ourselves. But a lot of times we just kind of need to be, for me, it took a long time and I had to kind of trick myself into it. But now I've learned how to effectively trick people into revealing and sharing those stories, even though we've kind of written them off as bad.
That vulnerability is what I'm hearing, is right. Getting that thick candy shell, getting through that part that's holding us back from being who we actually are. Say maybe in a different way. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and very similarly to the story, like we were mentioning with Armando, right? Where, when he was trying to talk me into starting this podcast, and it was very similar, and social media and things like that. Like, I have nothing to tell. I don't have a story to tell. Why do I need to do that? I again, did the same things I'm telling myself I'm not good at, or I'm not good enough, or whatever. And partially that same thing, I've felt a similar thing where it was, that's just bullshit, right? It's just the stories that I'm telling myself. Speaking of stories, it's a story I'm telling myself. And once I got over the fact, by the way, he also said, by the way, the podcast is not about you, dummy. It's about other people. So you don't have to worry about that. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Right. I can just have conversations. And very similarly, I found out that's what I can do. Right. I do have conversations. I'm curious. And so again, in real life, me living through that and getting into that, I can imagine, I can now sit in this and feel what you go through with clients. And I think even going way back to, again, some of the other things that you had mentioned, that you haven't mentioned anything about their business yet, right? That human and so many leaders, founders for sure, their identity is the business. Their identity is what they've shown up as for so long. You as a musician back in the day, that was your identity. That's what you wanted to be and do. And I think it's really, really interesting how you are taking it. Like, again, we haven't even talked about the business yet. We're talking about that human.
Yeah. This is another thing. It's like another big problem that people, when they come to the stage, they're trying to prove themselves. And so they think like, what are my successes? What does my business do? What are these kind of things? And the difference is, which does lean into the business a little bit, like when I work with my clients, and the thing that shifts our perspective from, oh, this isn't a good story, to, wow, I'm excited to share this, is we don't share things about ourselves. Like, I haven't shared any of these stories. And I'm sure we understand this, but we haven't had this thought yet. I didn't share the story of being like, well, I was in pain, so you should buy from me. Right. And I think a lot of us are afraid when we share vulnerable things that's what ends up happening. But when we're sharing these stories. I'm sharing these stories because I understand my clients, and I'm not just sharing them for me. I'm sharing them so that the people listening can take a walk in my shoes and come to a conclusion that it's better to come to a conclusion than me just telling you the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way of finding these stories. So with the people, when we're crafting a talk together, instead of being like, what's the best story you should tell? I ask, who is your ideal client? What is it like to be them? Like, how would they describe their problems to a friend at coffee before they meet you? Or what if they called you at like 3 a.m. and they were so stressed out, they were freaking out, and they were confessing things that they've never confessed before? What would they say? And we write that down. Very interesting. Very interesting. Whoa. And then I read those words back to them, and I say, where do you feel this in your body? And they'll say, oh, I feel it, maybe here, in my heart, whatever. Doesn't matter. But as long as they start feeling it, and then I say, when have you felt like this? And they will say, wow, I never thought of telling this story before, but here we go. And when it comes to like what we teach, it's not just about stories. Like, a story is about 20% of a good talk. We have to have great teaching. And instead of thinking, what's the coolest thing that I could teach today that's most exciting for me? And a lot of people just think like that. And then they're talking and they're teaching on stage and they feel like they're on fire and the audience just doesn't move. They get overwhelmed. It's like, what are the biggest objections and limiting beliefs that somebody would have to being successful with me? And how can I shift their perspective on those? Not how can I show them how to overcome all of these problems step by step, but what's one thing I could do to open them up to a new perspective? And this creates teaching that's a lot more simple, but a lot more effective and a lot more fun to share and much more fun to receive for the audience.
Oh, yeah. God forbid we try to understand what the client's looking for versus shoving what we have to them. Mm-hmm. Right? Most people come up with an offering, with a product, whatever, and some of them have done the research to know what the customers actually want. But they're like, well, I have this widget, and I'll find a way to make it sound right for you. Versus, I love that human side element of the best people. The companies that have the best following, the best branding, or whatever. It's not about the product. It's about understanding where their pain is and where it's addressed. And I want to go back to because the storytelling part can sound like a negative. Many of us have been, like you said, we've had a speaker that may orally, it's a compelling story and they're really, really good at telling the story, but you're like, it's like you made that story up, or it's like your point, it's not relevant to me. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, but it didn't move me at all. And so most people might think of, oh, you're the storytelling guy, so you're going to help them script something to memorize it that's canned. And I'm hearing the opposite of, I think maybe is when you're connected to the heart level and they're telling something about themselves, it's not a memorization thing, right? Mm-hmm. You're telling the story that is coming right from here. So I imagine that takes a lot of the burden down as well from the anxiety or whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Well, people want that story when they start out. They want the perfect story that they can script out and have silver bullet and work every time. But the anxiety that you're pointing out is when people are coming to the stage, or even in like a sales conversation, or even just like talking to somebody in a conference hall. And they're always thinking, how do I prove myself? How do I show all of my amazing knowledge to this person?
Absolutely.
And then all of these things are like boiling up. And like they can perceive this. And you're right. It's not about memorizing a perfect story. And the way that I work with people is more like a martial art. It's movements that you learn and you can learn to do over time with practice, mm-hmm. which does sometimes involve practicing scripts at the beginning. But you learn movements like wax on, wax off with Mr. Miyagi. We're doing the wax on, wax off. So eventually you're blocking punches like in the Karate Kid, for anybody who wasn't sure about what movie I was referencing there. And so like understanding, okay, what's my client's problem? What are they feeling? What's their language? And when did I feel like this? To summon a story, we can start to do this naturally. And instead of what magically happens when you start to learn how to do these movements of the mind of storytelling is, instead of like you and I being in a conversation and me thinking like, oh man, what's the cool thing I can come up with next? It's asking questions like, okay, well, what's this person's problem? What do they need right now? And instead of me being like all tense, I'm present with you, and the audience can feel that. And so, yeah, we can learn to do things in a way that, like, a lot of people that I work with early on, they think they can wing it, but they're usually winging it. Yeah, of course. And it's really because we don't have a lot of time. We're really time poor and we got a lot going on. And so the act of like thinking of things and practicing things is really scary at first. And two, we're a bit ADD and lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. Me too. But yeah, so learning these techniques, and what I like to do, on my podcast and with my private clients, is I'll ask questions and gather up the story material. And then I will, kind of like a Chat GPT, tell you your story or tell you your teaching point so you can experience it. Instead of me trying to intellectualize, here's the components of that we are putting together in this story, which there are lots of components and there's things we learn, but it takes that's why I work with people over 6 months so we can really master these things. Mm-hmm. But the first glance is just you getting to experience your story from outside of you. And for somebody like us, or a time poor, and we don't want to do a lot of memorizing, if we can just experience and get a smell for what a story is, it'll get us a lot of the way there, instead of trying to memorize it and go through an intellectual way.
Yeah, and I'm connecting with this quite a bit because you mentioned something early on too about allowing someone to be the visionary that they are, and because I have that illness as well. No, it's a superpower, right? The visionary part where again, there's a lot wrapped in here, right? There's a lot of story in here. There's lots of things that have come out. There's a lot of great things I can talk about, a lot of experience. But when I work best is having someone just interview me. And because I couldn't possibly sit and write the things that I want to say. You're right, I'll be jarbled all over the place. I jump all over. And I'm only going to remember, and I think you mentioned this point earlier, I'm only going to bring up to whatever my brain comes right at the moment. Mm-hmm. Versus with some cues, and as I just did this like a month ago, of someone else trying to help me tell, again, like self-promotion, right? Not meant, some of us aren't the greatest at coming out, well, why am I this? Why am I that? But someone asking questions and realizing how many things are conjured up from my past or from my experiences, that when someone is just sitting there in curiosity, I'll vomit for hours. But if you tell me like, hey, what's your story? I'll give it to you in 2.5 minutes, right? But if someone is there with a just a curious mind, I mean, I could write a 5,000 page novel, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a massive power in that.
Yeah, it's much more fun. Like, we're all busy. You've got 10,000 things like weighing on your mind at any one time. You've got clients, you've got team members, you've got family, you've got all these things that are like competing for the attention. And so to have somebody where you can like relax and be in a low pressure state and just be answering questions and in like being playful and curious together for a little while, instead of like I did, it's coming back to that guitar story, like sitting down and being like, I'm going to write a hit speech, but just like enjoying the process and relaxing and having fun. And there's such a value in being in a relaxed nervous system state that's so rare, and gets rarer the more successful you are, the more things are going to attempt to get you into that urgency and take your attention and rob you of things. And like, to write a great talk and to have this, it's kind of like being in a great sleep state, Mm-hmm. If we have to be like focused and at this for a while, which is why I usually like to just build a whole talk in a day with a single person.
Mm.
But like if you imagined trying to go to bed at night, and then every 15 minutes they were like, John, quick question. Okay, enjoy your sleep. Enjoy your sleep. Oh, hold on, John. Just one more thing. Just 5 seconds. Can you answer this thing for me? I'm not getting any sleep.
Yeah, right.
But that's how we, like, when we were sitting down, what story should I tell? John, what about the KPIs for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, that other person you're talking about is the one that's already in the back of my head asking those questions, right?
Oh, God. That's
right?
we can't even escape from them.
So I want to take this back to just, we're going to the speech part, but you do so much more. I'm hearing because I heard it way early on about almost like the why, helping connect the why. Because again, a lot of things that we talked about before, right? I'm a Bloom Growth coach. And a lot of that is the simplified version is like starting with what's the why in the business? Why are we all showing up here? And how do we connect that in a deeper passion, a deeper way to move it forward? And I heard you say that, right? Early on. I think how many of your clients come to you and their why changes, or the company's why changes by the time they're finished with you?
Oh, man. I've got my proudest story of the last year comes to mind with this. His name's JR, was a health clinic executive. He's built multi-million-dollar health and wellness clinics. And he worked with me in early 2020 and then hired me again to work with this multi-million-dollar biohacking clinic in Miami. And we were writing speeches for him, the founder, and a lot of the doctors. And he is exactly like everybody we've been talking about. He loves to work super hard. And we started writing a story about him in kind of the 2019, 2020 era. And he's working 18-hour days. His family lives in Minnesota, but he's traveling 3 weeks out of the month. And he comes home exhausted and frustrated. He's providing for his family, but his wife's like, what are you doing? Like, you're never here. And he's like, you don't understand all of the hard work that I'm doing. And he goes and we like script this out physically. And I remember at one of my retreats, he's practicing this story and he kneels down in front of us, like he's kneeling down in front of his daughter at this moment in the story. And he asks his daughter if he's scared of him or if she is scared of him. She says, yes, especially when you and mommy fight. And he realizes that all this hard work that he's putting in isn't working for him and isn't good. And it's having a much greater expense than he realized. And he needed to change himself. And when he shared that story in front of our group, you could hear a pin drop. It was crazy. And when he shares that story in front of large groups of high class executive medical professionals, they're crying. They're coming up to him. Oh, I saw myself in your story. But you know what the problem was? Is that he was doing the same thing in this clinic. He was working 18-hour days. The clinic was in Miami, and he was spending 3 weeks a month in Miami working 18-hour days, coming home exhausted, nothing for his family. And he's telling this story. And this is a problem because there's a truth in this story. And by telling the story, he's not able to ignore this imminent truth. And it creates this uncomfortability. And over the course of 6 months, he starts from going I don't know. I think I need to change how I'm working within this clinic. I need to be working less. I need to have this. I need to have more support. And he starts navigating a very difficult, very high intensity transition out of being the COO for this clinic into eventually working in a nonprofit on the side, into eventually not working in the clinic at all. And new opportunities for jobs start to crop up for him. And he's in his power, and he's doing something that would have taken a lot of courage and intensity, and he's doing it in a good way. And I remember him just a couple months back telling me, I was so afraid of leaving that job because I was getting paid so well for my family. And it only took 6 months. And actually now I work less. I'm getting paid more. I'm getting to coach my kids hockey. And that story and that talk that we wrote around that story, I made $130,000 in sales in one talk but the better part, the 130,000, that's amazing. But I get to coach my kids' hockey team, and that's surprisingly exhausting. I remember his saying that. And so this is like the who part. When we can start to learn how to express those things, it changed how he showed up. And it took him on a journey that he would have never expected, and probably wouldn't have if he had a slight idea. I mean, he's happy that it happened, but definitely not what he signed up for when he started working with me.
Yeah.
And this is something that is common in a lot of ways. And it helps people, like the people that I've worked with. We've created a lot of success, but it's like not quite the success we envisioned we'd be creating when we set out on this crazy journey in the first place. And by sharing more of who we are, more often than not, because they start making more money from the stage, and because they start valuing their visionary time better, they start coming back into alignment with their lives. That usually means their health improves, their family life improves, they hang out with their kids more, they're taking more vacations, they're living a better quality life. And those are the real like success stories that make me proud.
Oh, and you should be. That is fantastic. What an amazing story. And I hope, and again, for this audience is entrepreneurs. And, this message is said in a different way in so many different conversations that I have, that I hope everyone can relate to, right? Because the overwhelm, there's a reason this is called the roll call, right? It's all the roles we play in life. And that's why I love talking about, thank you for bringing that back down to not just the roles that they're playing. He's successful in his job. That's wonderful. But everything else in life cascades down from it. And there are many, many different ways to do that. So I would like to really maybe kind of pivot a minute here, because you're clearly a creative person. And there are a handful of people that I know in that same vein, and Armando's one of them, right? And it's hard because a lot of people have to give up that part, right? I was in a heavy metal band in high school too. I was not a musician. My buddy said, "Hey, go buy a bass and let's start a band." So I did. And I had an absolute ball. And I'm thinking about all those times in life when I've been like free and, light as a feather, are times like that where it's like, I'm just up there doing just showing up and doing something. And so many folks that I don't have the creative arts. I don't have that really in me, but so many people do. And they think they have to sacrifice that for a career, or they're going to be just poor but they're going to be a musician and loving it. Right. That's a story that I hear in so many different ways, or starving artists, or however you want to. You could have chosen that path. You've chosen to take your creativity and meld it with business. So you're making a buck and doing well, and you get to do and be that creative person that was on that couch in college, and before that. So I think there's some inspiration there. I mean, did you just fall into that? Or did you stay? Where do you think for others? Like, did you just stay true to your creativity throughout, or was there just a breaking point that says, "Hey, I think I can do this in a different way"?
I mean, there's 1,000 little stories like that. And while I think you've pinned me pretty well, and I have been able to embody the artist that I wanted to embody and live that dream life, and commitment to this, and foregoing some of the other things that you've said. And I think a lot of the listeners have foregone some of what I have in order, but I'm also if I'm being real, there's other roles that I'm not the best at. I think I'm strong in a lot of areas in business, and I have incredible creativity. And when I find the brilliant people that need my precise skill set, I can make great things happen for them. And I have a hard time managing my teams and keeping everything organized and really going well. And the way that my energy works is I have these fits of inspiration, where I have tremendous, force. And then sometimes I'm tired and I don't want to I don't want to do things. And just like I said in the beginning, like as much as I've been maybe true to myself, I haven't loved myself enough. And I compare myself to all kinds of other, like, wow, they have great teams. Wow, they have so many more business things than me. They're making millions, here where I'm not doing all of this. And it's been still just as much of an exercise I am in need of the medicine that I provide everyone I work with just as much, if not more. And so it's like a synthesis of like me struggling with myself and me still trying to force the hit song out of the guitar instead of enjoying the process. But so that is all to say, like, I love the people that I work with, and I only work with people that I think have something to teach me or that I admire or advance the world in a way that I want. And if you're building multi-million-dollar businesses, if you're leading huge teams, if you're taking on a burden that less than like 0.5% of this country and a small segment of the world is ever even capable of, like, I have such an admiration and a respect for you, and I want to help you unlock that one missing piece. And I also understand that, like, if you come to me and expect me to also have built a multi-million-dollar business and do all these things, I don't have those things, and I can just help. Like, people don't come to me for the answers. They come to me to have great questions because you have answers. You're brilliant if you've gotten as far as you have. And so, like, yeah, I'm learning to accept myself and my place and learn how to operate and manage myself. And like what you do, John, with the EOS stuff, it's like, oh man, I need that stuff so bad. I like resist my quarterly plans so much and like doing the checklists and stuff. And I know that it's so good for me. And like having that to manage the energy and the movement that I have, like what you do is so useful and brilliant and valuable. And so I have a respect for that. I have a respect for all the people that you're serving. And so, yeah, like I don't have it all the way figured out, but at least like what I can say is through this process, I've learned that the parts of me that I feel are weaknesses, when I know how to express them, which I'm expressing it in a way of like, I'm in service to people and leading through my vulnerability. I can be of service to people like you, John, and all of the people that you are working with and listening in on this show. And we all do some of our roles well, and we all need help in some other ways. And I would love to help, anyone out there in the particular ways that I've laid out. And I certainly need plenty of help myself. And like what you do, like people need to be working way more with you so that we can all be like what you provide is, if you have a good plan, then it makes it so much easier to get into that state of nervous system, which I said earlier. It makes it so much easier to know what to say no to so I can slow down. It makes it so much easier to know when I've done enough today, and it's gold. So
yeah, as usual, you had like 20 nuggets in there, and you never want to stop you. But like the first part that I hit on was, when you're not true and good to yourself, you're not great with your clients either, right? That's the lesson of, hey, we have to do that work ourselves you can't possibly help all of your clients if you're not getting yourself help, right? And then, and another quick thing of, I love Working Genius because it just simplified. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's Patrick Lencioni's work. It's right. We're a genius in a couple things. It's all about what we love to do. We're going to be great at it. We get it done quickly. We jump in. We don't procrastinate. When we're doing things that we don't love doing, we're going to get drained by them. We're going to be tired, like you just said, like, I don't want to do it, because you're probably working on a spreadsheet or something crazy that is not in your genius. And and it's finding those things and then figuring out who and how can help you do those things. So many lessons in what you mentioned in there. And as a small business owner, I've been there and done this, and so many have, and that's why I do the work with most of them, is that we feel we have to figure it out. It's on our shoulders. We're the owners of this thing. We've got to figure this thing out. And sometimes, a lot of times, there isn't anyone to turn to. All right. How many people in your organization have started a business by themselves and know all the ins and the outs? And how could they possibly help you? And this is, again, a lot of the conversation that happens in the back of the mind. So then you just take it on yourself and that burden. And, and that same thing you're talking about yourself. Like, I thought I wanted to build a huge business. I then realized after I set this 10-year goal of like growing 10X. And once we started getting there, I'm like, I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy. And until I stopped and told, and like you were mentioning, like actually saying that out loud, I was like, they're going to think I'm a terrible leader because I don't want to do that. And they're like, no. All right. I'm glad you finally said that, because we're spinning our wheels for nothing, Mm-hmm. And so there's so much in the things that you had mentioned too, like having to do like that. I'm doing the same things that you're doing in a different way, right? You are very specialized in what you do. And what I do is pretty broad, but I'm that third party person that's the one asking the questions, making the people uncomfortable. And it's not just you as the owner and the visionary. It's how do we get everyone in the organization to start talking and feeling that same way of like, hey, I'm doing this job and I'm terrible at it, right? I'm failing, but I'm not willing to say it because I think I'll get fired. Well, those are the kinds of things that the more you can emulate the things that you were mentioning of, the more you're vulnerable, the more they're going to be vulnerable. And it is the most empowering thing in an organization when people can be honest about where they are in life. And in your story, was it RJ, RY? What was your
JR.
story? JR. Sorry, I had someone else that I thought you were talking that in my head that had a similar story, and it was RY was his name. That same thing of freeing them up to go do what they love. And that can be outside of the organization too. And that's okay. That's the most fun that I have is a part of that is those whys and those ahas that I get to do with leadership teams. Because the living, breathing organization isn't just you, the owner. It's those that are doing the work. And how do we make sure their cup is filled up just like you're trying to fill yours up as an owner? Right. So I know we could jam for hours, and you could probably tell me stories until the sun goes down. But I'd love to finish here with a mistake, a failure, a misstep. A large one could be as deep as you'd like or as soft as you'd like that you think others could learn from.
I make this mistake often still, and this is a practice. And I think like I want to give you a shout out because you are the cure for this in so many important ways. There's such a real difference between waking up, being in touch with my vision, and acting in accordance with my vision, and like feeling the abundance and grace of that vision, and like, yeah, versus waking up with anxiety and inadequacy and making choices to try and satiate or cool that down, which is like waking up with the vision. I can like work on my book and create the thing, or I can like say no to the wrong people. But if I'm like doing it the other way, I'm trying to just fill my calendar, because filling a calendar equals busy, equals doing the right thing, sending enough LinkedIn messages, all of the email outreach. It's never enough. And then I'm like, at the end of my day, I feel more anxious and I'm less fun to my friends. I don't take as good care of myself. And it's a binary difference in what I'm choosing to draw from today. And that is what you help people clarify and return to. And it's not just like, for me, it's not having a story that I have scripted, memorized, and it solves all my problems. And it's not like I solved that once. It's like a practice of coming back to what you're building with people and what you're doing with people. And so the mistake is waking up and listening to anxiety or whatever it may be, and not making a yoga practice out of tuning into the vision and using that to really navigate my choices.
Oof. And I think, that is the bombshell of so many of us. There's the abundance mentality. There's you could frame it in many different ways, or letting life happen to us. Or really a lot of what you just mentioned, like letting go. That's the shame part of how successful you are, or how all those things that you're doing. And that's a choice each and every day, each and every moment. And sometimes we choose that. Our body chooses it, some form or fashion, they choose it. It's what kind of practice can you have to remember and get back to that? Because a lot of that stuff still has to happen, right? There's a reason that those things exist. But coming back to it's a ritual. It's habits. It seems what you said was so beautiful and eloquent, but it is habit, right? It is stop, breathe. What am I doing? Is life happening to me, or am I choosing what's next? And I appreciate you trying to give me some kudos on that. I can talk about that, but the individual, and again, I'm guilty of all those things you just said. But that's the choice that we have to make every day when we get up. And a lot of times when we know our why and our passion and our mission, that makes it easier. But so many of us don't know what that is. And so it's just this crazy abyss that we just wander around through life. So thank you for sharing that. That's a real struggle for everyone. So thank you, Kyle. How can people get in touch with you and your team to get all that wonderful curiosity and wisdom for themselves?
One of the best ways is to just check out my podcast, which, John, I would love to invite you to take part in. Every single week, I publish an episode where I go through this exact process I described. I take brilliant people just like you, and I help create stage-ready, powerful stories. So this is an amazing experience as a guest who likes to use speaking or is interested in speaking to get out of their own way and have a new story created for them. And it's just so much fun to showcase you to my audience and then showcase the process to my audience as well. So I would invite anybody to go over to the podcast.thestoryengine.co and check out the Story Engine podcast. You can go to thestoryengine.co and check out my books, tons of articles and content on telling better stories, and learn about my products and services and how I help people more directly. You can find me, Kyle Gray, on LinkedIn, or at Hey Kyle Gray on Instagram, where I usually share more of my personal goofy stories, less businessy things. But that's where anybody can get in touch with me. And if you're listening to this show, then you are somebody that I really admire, and I think I can help. So I'm taking guest applications all the time. So I would love people to come on and join me on the show.
Awesome. Well, you can count me in. And I want to be, if anyone's been listening to this, be ready to get scared, to get bare, and to do some things you're not going to want to do. I can already tell that that the journey with you, Kyle, is going to be an inspirational one and impactful for anyone. So, and that's how I also measure the impact and the power that someone can have from a business perspective or a coaching perspective, is if you can make them uncomfortable, that's how they're going to get better. So, and jump on the bandwagon, everyone. Kyle, this has been awesome. Again, we could have made this about a 4 or 5 hour one, but thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. It's been such an honor. And again, a labor of love. If you're still listening to this, leave John a review. Leave him a review. Thumbs up it on Spotify. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. It's so hard to get these things. Please do it.
Thank you for doing that work for me, Kyle.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.